Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Mad Mike, and today we have a surprise guest. I'm going to bring on my good friend Jason from Texas. He decided to video chat into the call today. Hold on a second, guys. Let me get him live and make sure you guys can hear him.
How's it going? How's it going?
How's it going, Jason? Good to see you, bud. What have you been up to?
Not a lot. Just trying to stay cool down here in this hot Texas weather.
Perfect. I appreciate you joining me today. We're going to go over the 307 card that just happened this last weekend, and then we'll touch on the main card for this next upcoming fight. Um, I just wanted to start it off with the women. I wanted to start it off with first Kayla Harrison. Did you watch her in the first fight?
In the no, I did not catch that first fight. Um, I know that she dominated Caitlin, but it's one of those things where she's been on a streak. She's 18-1 right now. Caitlin 14-4, but Kayla's just got this mean streak behind her, and I think she's really pushing for the top right now.
Well, when I watched it, I was expecting it to be a 10-1 odds. I made 47 cents on that fight. Made with a $5 bet, didn't make anything. It was like over 10-1 odds. So I was, knowing her, I was just expecting her to be too strong and too dominant. And actually, she looked pretty vulnerable. She had a hard time there for a while, but she was able to clearly make it her fight. It was like there was when it went to the decision, and it was clear call. It was all Kayla, but it wasn't easy for her. It wasn't as easy as I expected. I think my expectations were real high.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, or like I said already, she's on this win streak and she's pushing for the top. So you expect her to be a little more dominant in that fight, but sometimes, hey, that's the fight game, right?
Yeah, afterwards I did hear that there was such a hard weight cut for her for 135 since she is an ex 155er that uh that he was peeing blood. So there was a little even
Oh
talk that
my.
her might not even making the fight. But I mean, as long as she can keep that controlled, I would like to see her go against Pena, which leads me right into the Raquel Pennington Pena fight. What did you think about that one? I've heard people with mixed opinions on the decision. Um, how do you think it played out?
Okay, so I we were talking a little bit beforehand, and I think that you had already called it being Pennington's fight. I was thinking, oh, there's no way. Pena's got this drive, right? She's like, man, I got to get this belt. Where I feel like when you get that belt, you get maybe one or two fights in, they kind of get comfortable. I feel like Pennington was in that area right now. Like she was comfortable where she's at, and Pena was just ready to come in and snatch that belt, and that's what she did. I mean, you cannot let that go to a decision when a belt is on the line.
I will give you that. You definitely don't want the refs to pick it. How it ended, Raquel being from higher up altitude than Utah, and Pena looking just super gassed there at the end. Did you? What rounds did? How did you score those rounds? How did you score them when you were watching it?
Definitely had. I think it was Raquel. Raquel was first two fights. Again, she's got something to prove, right? She is defending this championship belt. First two, and I want to say Pena was coming on strong. She's again down, trying to come up. And then third round, I'm going to give to Pena, and but I think fourth and fifth round, Raquel, you know, even though she's gas, she did what she had to do, but Pena just took it on home. I mean, again, leaving it in the refs' hands. We didn't. There was not a lot of good ref calls all night. Or not ref calls. Sorry, I mean judges. there was not a lot of good judges calls, so as well as ref calls. We can get to that later, though.
Yeah, and you know, when I was watching the fight, you know, obviously I bet on Raquel, you know, through the DraftKings picks that I do. I thought she wasn't gonna be so complacent, like you were saying. Maybe she did get a little
Yeah.
complacent at being the champ and maybe not go as hard. And then maybe Pena was hungry. Pena definitely came in hungry. She wanted it. She didn't want that fight to go the whole 5 rounds. She was putting, and Raquel was taking it, you know, as much as Pena was putting into it.
Oh
Now,
yeah, absolutely.
now, if you were listening to like or watching live on the TV where they have, you know, the little Twitter or X where everybody's chiming in, and if you're listening to Rogan and DC and them on the sidelines and Anik, that they were definitely saying that they thought ending on the fight that it was Raquel, meaning Raquel got that first round, because it really came down to who how you judge that first round. Going
Yep.
into when it was finished, even after the first 2 rounds, I was like, yeah, I got to give that to Pena. She had more output, but
That's what I'm
maybe
saying.
maybe the crowd or maybe the people, the spectators watching it, or other people who thought Raquel had it, maybe they thought she had the more powerful or did the more damage, because it wasn't like it was a blowout in the volume of the strikes. It was maybe 5 or 6 more than Raquel, but maybe Raquel just had the better strikes. But in my opinion, going into that third, I was like, wow, it's 3-0. And then Raquel just turned it up. And I was like, maybe she turned it up a little bit too late, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you look at the way that they scored at these fight stats, Raquel and Pena are almost neck and neck in everything. 112 for 345 and 123 for 308 total strikes. You know, Pennington Pena. So they're right there, and Pena just threw a few more strikes that landed versus Pennington, like you said, showing a little bit more action, which I mean that's another thing we were talking about. That's what the UFC is looking for, right? They're trying to turn up the action. Hence, kind of some of these referee decisions that were going on earlier in the night.
And I'm not even mad at the decision. I literally, even though I bet on Raquel, I still had Pena winning that to the decision. I was like, right
Yeah.
there at the end, I thought Raquel was literally gonna. I can't let this go to the decision. I thought she was turning it up, and it was just gonna end up at stoppage. Pena was just mouth breathing the whole last round. It didn't look good, and you know, and then listening to everybody else, you'd think Raquel, but I was like, I don't know, man. Everything I would say when we were watching the fights here at my house, then they would repeat as the commentators like shortly after. So I was like, they obviously we're talking the same topics
They're seeing the
and
same
points. Yeah.
thing.
So obviously they see how I did Pena, and then they're like, oh, Raquel got robbed, and I was like, I don't know. I'm not even mad at that decision. Like you said, the champ can't be
I get,
complacent, and they got
you
to go hard.
cannot. You have to push and show that you want that belt still. Like I feel like it's happened, especially in the women's division. I feel like they get 2 to 3 title defenses, if that, uh, barring Shevchenko. You know what I mean? Like she kind of took it on a tear with. But like a lot of these women seem, and even the men, not to just say it's just the women, but they get this belt. There's a lot of media going on. There's a lot of things that are taking more of their time, so they're not in there training as hard. And you've reached that top part. Like the next thing is just defending the belt, and that doesn't mean as much as like getting to the top of the mountain.
So they're not as hungry. Their bellies are full.
I I think a lot. I think a lot of it is like, I mean, it is a lot of these a lot of these fighters are working so hard to get to that point. You know what I mean? And they want to take a little bit of break. They feel like they get to take a little break when they get there. And then I think some of them don't realize there's a lot more that actually comes to that. You're doing presses, you're doing video games, you're doing, you know what I mean? You got to do all this extra stuff that's taking your time. Again, taking away from your training, taking away from, looking at video, looking at your opponents. It all takes its toll. And having children, like there's a lot of that happens right around when these guys or girls are getting these championships, and then it's like they're taking care of family, and you're stepping away, and whether it's ring rust or whether it's just they have other priorities, I can't say.
Well, speaking of stepping away, Amanda stepped away and she was called out by Pena, which I saw the split screen. Kayla said she was ducking, she was running away. Um, because obviously next is got to be Kayla versus Pena. That's how I see it going. And then
Only
obviously
because,
do you think the Linus
yeah,
is that enough to bring Amanda out of retirement? Is Kayla
that,
Harrison enough?
again, family. Is it enough to bring Amanda out from her family? Like, and because I feel like that's her main goal for stepping away during this time.
I mean, she was
Family
definitely
and
teasing the
taking care of
comeback.
that. Well, I mean, they all want that. They all have the itch to fight. You know what I mean? Like it's in their blood, so they're gonna come back. It's just a matter of when. And again, who is gonna be the one that entices her enough to come back?
So the way I see
Is
it
that
playing
Pena
out,
or Harrison?
it's not Pena, it's Harrison. But there's money regardless because here's how I see it. Kayla Harrison, if she comes up and she does get the title, uh, obviously I feel like that's enough for Amanda to come out of retirement. However, I feel like Amanda's going to call it at 145 for the 145 title, and then there will be a rematch at or at 135. She'll get the 135. Then she still has the champion clause, and then we finally get Pena 3, and then she rides off into the sunset with fucking a dump truck full of money.
But see, at that point, I don't know. Again, like, did Pena look strong enough to beat a Nunez? Like, and how what Nunez are we going to get back?
Well, that's why I say we'll see it at 145. Kayla is having trouble meeting that 135, as I mentioned. Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak on how hard it is for her, but she was having complications getting
Obviously,
there.
yeah.
Um, and then I feel like, hey, if Amanda wanted that, 145 is just sitting there like they both can do that comfortably, without that hard weight cut. And then, hey, if it was really close and Amanda, it was a really close one, hey, you rematch that at 135, you make them do that extra weight cut. And then either one of them can have a Pena fight after that. She's a second thought, like in
Yeah.
my opinion. Sorry, Pena, you got the title now, but like I said on the original
So you think
podcast, I
Harrison
think
and
it's going to
Pena
bounce
next?
around until Kayla gets it. I do think they fast track Kayla Harrison to the title. They brought her in for a reason. She was doing way more
Yeah.
presser. She was the reason people were paying attention to the women's fight that night for the most part. They want to say they were just waiting to see who Kayla was going to fight. Was it going to be Pennington or Pena? And
There you go.
now we know. I think they'll feed her to Kayla Harrison, and then Amanda will be like, all right, that's something new and enticing, and come out. And then Dana White's already said, yeah, we'd love that idea. And I think they throw a dump truck full of money at Amanda to come out of retirement for 2 to 3 fights. Sign her for 3 fights, a 45 at 35, and then a Pena number 3. Boom, done.
Done.
So, what do you think? What do you think? You think they could possibly go that route?
I mean, there's no reason why Kayla couldn't get the title shot. You know what I mean? Like, who else is the option right now?
At 145, there are no options. They're just shutting that weight class down if it's not Kayla Harrison. I mean, Holly Holmes can probably rock that weight class. I would like to see Holly Holmes maybe. You're not feeling
Uh,
Holly these days?
I just don't think that. Again, we were talking, earlier about age, and we hadn't got to, you know, uh, we hadn't got to Aldo or You know,
Yeah, and I was gonna say age. Well, then let's just go right into it. How did you feel about Aldo's performance? He was
I
going against
think
Mario Bautista, and that is a much younger athlete.
that, and again, like how, okay, this is what the UFC does, right? They give a young guy who is up and coming, who they think it looks good and they can, push, and they give them to a legend. And they beat the legend, and they kind of like, they absorb those superpowers, if you will. You know what I mean? Like they get that moment of glory, and then they get to build them up to the next guy, to the next guy. And hopefully, if that person is, putting in the work, they get to climb that ladder, kind of fast track, exactly like we were saying, Kayla Harrison.
Now, you were talking about some poor judging
Oh
decisions.
my gosh.
Was this one of them?
No,
When
no.
you saw Aldo walking around the ring with his crown on, thinking he had won that, were you like, he won that? This was Aldo's
No.
day. Like the other dude just pinned him against the ring and didn't do anything, just stood there, and Aldo was throwing hands and looking good, and it should have been Aldo, or did you? Hey, the guy had the position and Aldo couldn't
No,
get out.
I think the guy had the position and Aldo couldn't get out. I think there was like uh some refing that was, a little questionable on time, that guys are, working things out. But if you're in that position, if a guy's got you down, he's got you pinned, if this is the ultimate fighting championship, right? Like fighting, what is a fight? It is, you do whatever you have to do, within realms of safety and things like that, that we've created these standards behind. But if you're in this position and you're pinned down, it's up to you. Get out of that. How do you get out of that? This is what you train for, and if you're not training for that, that's a weakness in your fight game.
And I 100%. Hey, the guy fought for the position. I don't think the ref should be stepping in as much as the UFC wants them to. I feel like they are leaning towards if they're not advancing and they're
A more
just laying
action,
there.
fast
If they're
pace.
trying to catch, yeah, if they're trying to catch their breath and not do any finishing, like, hey, maybe we should stand that up, and it's up to him to get back into that position. And they're going to keep breaking him up. I guess, they want more action done. They don't if you're they want you to go for a submission. They want you to try to finish the fight. And they are encouraging the refs to break that up, it seems like. It seemed like that came up several times during the pay-per-view, and uh I kind of want to talk a little bit more, on this whole position, how to get the position. So, it seems like hey, they fought for it. We shouldn't break this up. Um, do you see why they want to break it up?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, this is in a certain way, you have to understand that this becomes a monetary machine, right? They have viewers that they have to please. There's a larger demographic that wants to see action. They want to see hands being thrown. They want to be they want to see guys getting choked out, right? They don't necessarily want to see guys laying on top of each other, grappling hands for position, which is a huge, huge, huge part of, fighting and everyday aspects of, any type of fight that you're going through. Hand to hand combat always turns into a grapple if you're in close enough. So I get seeing, wanting to move that forward, but at the same time, like, you know, if a guy is holding for 8 seconds, let them go a little bit longer. Let them go 10, 15, 20 seconds if they're moving around. Now, there are some times where you can obviously see a guy is leaning on somebody. They're huffing and they are puffing and they're getting breath, right? But there is also times, like we saw the other night, where you definitely are not doing that. It's they're moving around. They're trying to, tussle for his position, and they're getting separated within I saw 8 seconds. I saw 10 seconds. I saw 15 seconds. So I don't understand that. That's a little quick in my opinion.
Yeah, and I totally get it. It's boring. It's definitely not exciting. But it is a strategy, and that was Bautista's
Absolutely.
strategy. He came in and was like, if I can't handle the champ, the goal is to pin him in the ring, and it's
Yep.
up to Aldo to spin out into the center of the ring and throw hands if that's Aldo's game plan. Aldo is also a Brazilian. You know he's got good ground. I don't. You know it's also Aldo's job to reverse and take position. I feel like the altitude was playing a lot here.
On a lot of these guys.
A lot of
Yep.
these guys have never been up to 3,000 feet and it or more, and it shows. By the second, third round, both guys were probably feeling the fatigue. Bautista was probably like, "I want to take him down, but I just don't have the energy to wrestle him." And Aldo's not just going to go down. That was him stuffing the takedown. It just wasn't exciting, and I was all right with the loss. Actually, I had a buddy over here watching the fights with me, and Aldo was walking around with his crown on. He's like, "Is that's going to be pretty embarrassing if he loses here in a second?" I go, "Yes, it will be, because he
Uh,
might if the judges see that as more control over damage, And then, boom, he ended up
yeah.
losing. I was like, "Well, that was probably pretty embarrassing. He was walking around with his crown on."
Yeah, and it kind of went the other way on Pena and Pennington. Where it was like a little more damage versus control. Where Raquel Pennington had a little more control, and Pena just did a little more damage versus Aldo and Bautista, where Bautista just controlled the heck out of Aldo, and it just oof. Again, you got to get out of that.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this before, even this topic was popular. And if I'm wrong or if I'm not correct, I would think you remember you telling me that you even got an even more radical thing that if somebody fought for his position and then the bell rings with them on top, that the next round should start with them in that same position in that same spot. It's a
I've heard it.
continuation of a long fight and not three individual fights. Um, do you like that over? Hey, every round they start over back on the feet.
Okay, so I mean, I understand this theory, I guess, where when you go into this fight, it's not three 5-minute fights. It's one 15-minute fight, right? You're fighting an opponent for 15 minutes. You just happen to get these breaks in the middle. Why wouldn't you, like in wrestling, okay, you break, and when you come back from that break, they break you up and reset you, you go directly back to that position. Why wouldn't we do that at the end of the round? You fought for this position. It may take you, say you're in an actual fight, it's not, nobody's going to come and stop you and separate you and be like, hey, guys, wait. You guys stand back up and separate 20 feet apart and now
That's right.
start again.
Water break, water break.
Yeah. So I get that theory where it's like, you should reset to that point that you got to. If it takes 5 minutes for you to get that guy down and pin him, and you're so close to getting a rear naked or an arm bar or an ankle lock, like, man, you should get to that same dominant position at the start of another round. I'm not saying I necessarily believe that, but I can definitely see where it's coming from and where people can get on board with that. Will we go there? I don't know. I don't think so. I think you have a better, take on it where it's much better to be stood up.
I see the argument from both sides. You did fight for the position. It was hard fought. And like you said, like wrestling and other sports where they would start him back in that position. Um, where I do see it as every round should stand back up. Yeah, the rules are you have 5 minutes to get me down and beat the crap out of me and make me give up, Or we stand back up. If you couldn't choke me out on the ground, then we get to stand up and I get to kick you in the face in the next round, or at least try. So I like the fresh start. Every fight starts on the feet. Um, Even though some people aren't the best, it's up to them to level change. And if they're not good, you get Ben
You just
Askren.
take them right back in. Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Sorry, Ben, you're
What?
now like that's a term you get Askrened.
You got Askren.
Well,
Uh,
speaking of knockouts, the final fight, it
oh wow.
did it live up to the expectations, the Alex Pereira Roundtree, and what were you expecting going into that fight?
Honestly, I'm gonna be like I think. Oh, Roundtree had a chance. Roundtree had a chance, but it had to have been before round two. Once it got past round two, Pereira he's a machine. He's an Amazonian monster. I mean, what do you want me to say? Like, the guy has got power for days and he's got stamina for days and he just walks at you like a tree trunk. So I kind of knew that Pereira was going to take this, whether it went to decision. Uh, Honestly, like, I didn't expect it to go this far. I mean, it went deep into the fourth round. So I was super surprised by Roundtree, but in that last round, he really opened him up. Like, Prayer really opened Roundtree up. He started catching his number. He was just placing shots all over his face. I mean, Roundtree's face will show you everything you need to know. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, and basically when I was doing my DraftKings episode, it almost went exactly how I was expecting. I knew Roundtree had a chance. I mean, those big dudes, one punch can really turn
Yeah,
it
yeah,
around.
absolutely.
And I said he is explosive and fast, and Poetan does take hits. So if he can get in there early with a lot of power, but I said if it goes further than the second round, that it would be finished. I did think it was going to finish in the third round with my prediction, especially at altitude. It
Yeah.
going deep into round four was the only thing that caught me off guard. It almost went exactly how I thought. Roundtree was gonna, if he didn't get it early on, then he was gonna get tired and he was just gonna get
Yes.
worked. And man, did Alex Pereira stay composed? Like stone
Oh,
face, like
there
the whole
was,
time, like he's got that meme down, bro. Like he got
yeah,
hit a couple times, and I heard
there was a couple
Roundtree
of
in
rocks.
it. I heard Roundtree in an interview say, "I hit him," and he's like, he went down, and his eyes got big, and then like 2 seconds went by, and he went right back to stone face, and I was like, "Damn it, I'm screwed!" Like,
He's
you
a
know,
monster. He's scary.
now, I mean, regardless of that outcome, Alex Pereira's stock went up, but Roundtree, he did not lose anything on that. He was ranked eight.
No,
If
no, no, 100%.
in my opinion, I say let's give him some top contenders.
Second,
I
yeah.
Jamal Hill. I say throw him in the ring with Jamal Hill, and then the winner can get a Poetan after he fights Ant Goliath. So
Whew.
um, if he can get through the Dagestani, then I say you give him the winner of the Jamal Hill, and somebody can get their rematch. I just don't, I mean, even Jan was close. They went to a decision. Like,
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
I wouldn't be mad putting Polish Power back in there, but I mean, light heavyweight's exciting again. But would you like to see Pereira go up and fight the winner of the John Jones Stipe or even Aspinall if those guys retire? Champ, champ,
Oh my
champ.
God. I think Pereira, John Jones. Come on. Come
I mean,
on.
I feel like whoever is gonna win any of these heavyweight fights,
John,
that's who we
how
give.
big?
That's who we get Pereira, and it's money regardless. Pereira versus the heavyweight champ, regardless of who's got the title, is money. It maybe more bargaining power if it's John Jones or Stipe. I don't know. Even Aspinall, they're all great heavyweights.
Here's my question. How big do you think Pereira can get? Oh my God. Because he's
Well,
already
I
big
know he
and
walks
tall and
around at
lanky.
like
Like,
230, 240 is what I hear. Like,
so
and
260. He could bulk to 260.
if you gave him enough time, probably. So supposedly when
Because
he's in
John
there
Jones,
sparring,
he walks around like 250.
and Stipe is probably walking around at 250, 260 these days too. I've
Yeah,
heard Stipe's
yeah.
bulked up looking pretty big. And that's next month.
So
That's November's card, bro. Like I think the next I think
let me
there's
see. Let me see.
is there another October one? Do we have an end of October and then a middle of November? Is that what we're getting?
We got October 26th is Holloway and Topuria and Whitaker and Chimaev. And then we got 309 will be November 16th. John
Okay,
Jones,
okay.
Miocic, Oliveira, Chandler, Bo Nickel, Paul Craig. Yeah, that's gonna be a fight.
Oh, and we'll do another one of these before we get there.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I was just
just
looking.
just real quick before we wrap this up because we've already
All
been
right.
going for a half an hour. Um, the upcoming card. So there's a fight night coming up. I split the bet, my winnings slash losings from the last one. I did put I think $1 more on Tatsura. He is undefeated. He did have more finishes and less decision victories. Um, but he's fighting, I think, Brandon Royval. And Royval, even though he's got finishes, he still is a stand in there type of guy. So but however, I just feel like the undefeated youngster will probably get it done. I split the money that way I can still have some kind of winnings to throw on that last fight night before we
Yeah,
get to that next
absolutely.
pay-per-view. Um but who you just looking at the overall, what do you think on that one?
I'm gonna say right now, I'm looking at all their stats and what we got. We got a 2-inch reach advantage with Tatsuro. So with that and him being 24 and like you said, he's young and undefeated. Brandon Royval is going to have his work cut out with them catching him. I think like if he wants to really put in some work, it's going to take some work. So I'm gonna say it's gonna be Tatsura too, but to play devil's advocate, let's go ahead and go with Brandon Royval.
All right, does it go all 5 rounds or is there going to be a stoppage?
Ooh, I think yeah, I think these guys are going all 5 rounds or
All
all
five.
3 rounds. No, this is it
It's
5 rounds?
5 rounds. It's the
Okay, yeah,
main
five
it's the main
rounds.
fight.
Yep, they're
Five
going
rounds.
all 5 rounds. Absolutely, this is
All
gonna
right.
be a 11 o'clocker for sure.
All right. Well, we will be back next week. We're going to try to make this a weekly video chat with Jason. We're going to try Fridays. I will recap on Monday after the fight card goes on. Everybody, thank you for watching. If you like, subscribe and like the video and help us with the algorithm and grow the channel. We can't actually do these live until we get 50 subscribers. So come on, guys, help us build this up.
Hey, hit that like, subscribe, baby. Come on.
All right, Jason,
Thanks for
man, I
having me.
appreciate you calling in, and I'll holler at you over the weekend. We'll set this up for next Friday. We'll try to do it a
All
little
right.
earlier. Now we got all the technical stuff taken care of.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
All right, bud. Take care, dog.
Later.